Thanks for the intro. Yeah, so I'm been working with Amber at the Esri R&D Center in Portland, and this talk has absolutely nothing to do with anything we're doing there. So this is just something I've been using Car2Go for a while, and it's been wonderful. It's been fantastic. I don't actually have my own car anymore. I mostly just bike and drive Car2Gos, buses occasionally too. So I've been using it for a while, and I was kind of curious to see how other people are using it and figuring out why it's worked so well here. I guess most of you are familiar with it. If you aren't familiar with it, it's car sharing program. It's different from Zipcar in that it's basically designed around one-way trips. So you can pick up the car anywhere you find one, and you can drop them off in any city parking spot. So any of the 2-hour street parking or parking meters downtown too. So it's not like Zipcar has the home spot for a car, but Car2Go you can just pick them up and drop off anywhere. There's a boundary around the city limits. It's basically going up to the Airport Street in North Portland, west out a little bit past deep northwest, and then I think it's a little bit farther south than Powell Boulevard, and 82nd is the boundary-ish. You'll see that in a minute. But anywhere within there, you can pick them up and drop them off. So it's pretty cool. I've been driving the Car2Gos for a while, and I realized I had an API. So I was like, okay, what can I do with this? I see that I can collect a lot of data. The API is there so that they didn't have to build a mobile app first, which was a very clever move. They got everybody else to build mobile apps. So there's a dozen iPhone and Android apps, and they're varying degrees of suckiness. But you can get a car with them, so that's what's important. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just turn this script on and see what happens later. So back in a little over a year and a half ago, I turned on the script that just started downloading all of the cars snapshot every 15 minutes. So I learned very quickly there are 316 cars in Portland. Some of them have appeared and disappeared. For each car, I download where it is every 15 minutes. So through the API, you don't get the position of the car if it's booked. It's only if it's available. So if you look at the app and you see what's on the app, that's what I'm downloading. So it's okay, here are all the available cars. So what that means is that every 15 minutes I can see is the car available. If it's not available, it means it's booked or in for maintenance or something. So this ran, I was running this script starting in June 2012. Just kind of turned it on, didn't really look at it, let it just fill up a database. And then in December, this last December, a couple months ago, I was like, I should take a look at that and see what happened. And turns out you get a lot of data when you just kind of turn the thing on and let it run. So here's what I'm actually collecting. There's vehicle ID. There's the timestamp of when I observed it. There's the latitude, longitude, and the fuel level of the car, and some of them are electric, so it's the battery percent when it's electric car. And then there's also the interior-exterior rating, which is when you click the little happy face when you get in the car. That's recorded and is made available in the API. So here's a little database dump of a couple rows of the database. This is what it looks like in the raw form. There's 10 million of that stuff in this database. So, so I was like, okay, so I've got 10 million rows of data. Let's see what I can learn from this and see what it looks like if I just throw it onto the screen. So this is the very most simple thing you can do, which is just throw all of the dots on the screen. And this isn't even a map. Don't tell all my Esri friends who know about map projections that I did this, because this is basically screw map projections. This is just take the window of Portland, convert the lat longs into XY coordinates on the screen, and just put the dot there. Not accurate at all. If you put a map of Portland behind it, it would not line up with the streets. But you can still see the streets, which is kind of neat, because that's where the cars are parked. So the color in this one, I believe, is, I didn't put the scale on this one, I have it on the next one. The color of this one is based on the time that the car was observed. So the yellow one is a little bit more in the morning, which is the giant cluster of them downtown, and then the darker ones are in the evening. But it's pretty neat that you can kind of see the patterns of where people are parking the cars emerge from just this. Here's another coloring of the same data, a little bit zoomed out. Anybody who lives here can immediately recognize this as Portland. There's the giant river block, and it's interesting that in this map, because it's Cardigos, the I-84 shows up dark because you can't park your car there. But I guess that makes sense. So let's see if I have a mouse here. Nope. So this is you probably can't read the numbers, but this is the time legend. So everything below here is like 11 a.m. to early morning, and everything after here is in the evening. So this is where the cars are available in morning versus evening. So there's that giant splattering of yellow downtown, which means that the cars are most often available in the downtown in those hours. And it's also kind of interesting to see, like, if any of you live in various parts, you'll probably start looking for where you live and see how that reflects your general sense of when the cars are available in your area. It's kind of interesting, the dark spots that appear. So here's a zoomed in area of Portland. I still don't know what these things are. Great. So that's one way to look at it, which is throw all the dots on the map. I also said, okay, what else can I do with this? I can slice this up in different ways. So this is a graph showing for all of the, so what I was recording was available, the cars that are available every 15 minutes, which means I know that if a car disappears for one or more of those intervals, I can assume that it was rented out somewhere and then returned later and appeared somewhere else. So I basically combed through the entire data set, building up a trip database. Now, Car2Go actually has this data, and because I don't have anything to do with Car2Go, I can't get that data, so I have to infer it. So my data is a little bit messier, but it's still there. So I go through the whole list of the data, and I say, okay, a car was here at 10 a.m., and then it was over here at 10:30. That means there was a trip that went from here to here, and I know how far away that is, and it lasted somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes, because I was only sampling every 15 minutes. So this chart shows the number of trips by distance from start to end. And this is just as the crow flies, not street distance. So the crazy thing is that how many of the trips started and ended in the same 10-meter radius. And I have a couple of explanations for that, but I haven't dug into it too much. And then the rest is more like what I would expect, where there's a peak of short trips tailing off a little bit. If you zoom into the, here and back, it looks like this, which is a little bit more of a nice curve. But again, there's this ridiculous peak at the 0 to 0.2 kilometers. So basically what I think happens here, so if you ignore that first one, the most frequent trip distance is around 1.4 kilometers, which is about what I would expect. It's like, maybe an 8-minute drive, a little, to work maybe or something. But that spike up at 0, I think, is mostly caused when you hit reserve, the car doesn't appear in the app. And if you don't take the car and you let your reservation expire, it shows up back in the same spot again. So I think that's what's happening there. And that occurred to me after a couple months after I made this. The other one that's interesting was this idle time. So this is the time that the cars are sitting on the street not booked. And this is also interesting because most of them are sitting not booked for about 30 minutes, which means the cars are super active, which means Car2Go is making a lot of money, which is awesome. Because that means they're going to stick around. And this one is the average trip length. And this one surprised me a lot because the average trip length was between 30 and 45. And some of that might be because of the skew of reservations, but even still, that's a lot longer than I drive them. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, so that's what I've done with it so far. I have all the data for this available. If you go to that URL, you can download CSVs or SQL dumps of all of this data. Play with it yourself. I've got scripts to help you download it and all that kind of thing. And yeah, let me know if you make anything with the data, because I would love to hear what other people find with it.
Great.
Thanks.
Questions for Aaron?
Oh yeah, sure.
Those gold dots, did they represent when that was in the water? Did that represent single instance.
That was a single instance. Yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. The question was when the dot was in the water, was that an average or a single instance? Every dot was a single instance of a car being observed. So that was like, yeah, at one point, one car showed up there for some reason.
So, okay, I use Car2Go, and it has not allowed me to shut a car off, even though I've been in the geofence, basically. Do you think those are just discrepancies, where there's like malalignment with the GPS coordinates?
Yeah, I don't know. The question was sometimes the car doesn't let you actually clock out based on whether it thinks it's in the right area. I've seen some glitches too. I have no idea why. Like I said, I have absolutely no affiliation with Car2Go. Just this weird interest. Yeah.
Aaron, have you looked at any correlation between, obviously, there's maybe obvious correlation between distance and time. It seems like some people would make a purchase to store, park the car, and come back, so you should see it.
Yeah, so about correlation of distance and time, actually there is something I noticed from that, and I didn't get into it, but there was if you look at two of the graphs combined, you can see a lot of trips are actually like 45 minutes and they start and end in the same location, which is a lot of round trip like grocery store and come back, as opposed to one-way trips. So, and you can also see a very strong number of like 45-minute drives that are not round trip. So that's kind of interesting too. I should figure out a way to graph that. But I don't know, it's like 2 different dimensions, 3 dimensions, but you have to put it into 2, I don't know. I didn't take stats.
Well, you did pretty well for not taking any statistics course. If you have any other questions for Aaron,